It all began on a seemingly ordinary summer morning in 2013, along the calm but unpredictable waters off the coast of Rhode Island. Nathan Carman, a young man of 19, was preparing for what should have been a routine sailing trip with his mother, Linda Carman, and his grandmother, Arlene Carman. The three had planned the trip as a quiet getaway, a chance to escape the pressures of everyday life and enjoy a weekend on the water. The vessel, a 31-foot yacht, sturdy yet modest, was moored at the marina, its white hull glinting under the early sunlight. Friends and family waved them off, oblivious that this ordinary excursion would soon spiral into one of the most puzzling maritime mysteries of the decade. As the yacht drifted away from the shore, Nathan described the morning as calm and uneventful. According to his initial statements, the sea was gentle and the sun shone warmly over the deck. He spoke of laughter and conversation between him, his mother, and his grandmother, seemingly carefree and in good spirits. But by the afternoon, the situation had changed drastically. Somewhere miles offshore, an incident occurred, one that would alter the course of their lives forever. Nathan claimed that a sudden squall had hit the yacht, catching the vessel off guard and throwing both women overboard. Yet the more authorities investigated, the more inconsistencies emerged. When the Coast Guard received the distress call, they found Nathan alone aboard the yacht, visibly shaken but unharmed. The vessel itself bore signs of struggle, ropes tangled, personal items scattered, and a life jacket left unused. There was no sign of the women. Linda and Arlene had vanished without a trace. The initial search was immediate and intensive. Helicopters combed the skies while boats scanned the waves for any sign of life. Divers examined the depths beneath the yacht, but the ocean, vast and unforgiving, held its secrets tightly. Days turned into weeks, yet the search yielded nothing. No body, no personal effects, no clue as to where the women had gone or how. Nathan's account of the events became the subject of intense scrutiny. Investigators noticed contradictions between his statements and the physical evidence on the yacht. The timeline he provided didn't align with known weather reports, and some details about the alleged squall were disputed by maritime experts. His calm demeanor, juxtaposed with the disappearance of his mother and grandmother, struck some as unusual. Friends and acquaintances were divided. Some described him as visibly traumatized and grief-stricken, while others questioned whether his reactions were genuine, hinting at a deeper, more disturbing possibility. As news of the disappearance reached the public, the story captured widespread attention. Headlines in local newspapers and online forums described it as a baffling maritime mystery, sparking a wave of speculation. Amateur investigators pored over the details, dissecting every statement Nathan made, every photograph of the yacht, and every reported fact of the case. Social media became a breeding ground for theories, ranging from tragic accident to foul play. Every small detail was scrutinized. Why were the women's life jackets not on? Why did Nathan not call for help sooner? Why were certain personal belongings left behind? Each question seemed to deepen the mystery rather than solve it. The disappearance also prompted authorities to look more closely at the Carman family itself. Nathan's father, Nathaniel Carman Sr., had a history of business ventures and a family legacy that would later play a significant role in the case. Questions about inheritance, family dynamics, and potential motives began to surface. Was this really just a tragic accident, or was there something more sinister lurking beneath the surface of this young man's life? The answers remained elusive, as if the ocean itself had swallowed not just Linda and Arlene, but the truth as well. What started as a seemingly innocent family outing transformed into a story of suspense, suspicion, and heartbreak. The ocean, with all its beauty and danger, had become a silent witness to a tragedy that no one could explain. The disappearance of Linda and Arlene Carman marked the beginning of a long and tangled investigation, one that would eventually reveal secrets, legal battles, and questions about morality, responsibility, and human behavior. For Nathan, the events of that day would forever define him, shaping public perception and fueling speculation that continues to this day. Even years later, the case remains unresolved. The empty yacht, the vastness of the sea, and the unanswered questions continue to haunt investigators, true crime enthusiasts, and anyone who follows this tragic story. What really happened on that fateful day? Was it a sudden act of nature, or was there a darker truth lurking beneath the surface? The ocean, cold and unyielding, has yet to reveal its secrets, leaving the disappearance of Linda and Arlene Carman one of the most compelling maritime mysteries of recent history. Almost immediately after the disappearance of his mother and grandmother, Nathan Carman became the center of intense scrutiny. While authorities were focused on searching the ocean and piecing together the sequence of events, investigators couldn't ignore the peculiarities surrounding Nathan himself. At only 19 years old, he had survived what should have been a life-threatening ordeal, yet his behavior and account of the day's events raised more questions than answers. Nathan's story was consistent in its broad strokes. He claimed a sudden storm had capsized the yacht, throwing his mother and grandmother overboard. But when investigators dug deeper, cracks began to appear. There were inconsistencies in the timeline he provided. Witnesses in the marina and maritime experts analyzing the weather data found that the squall Nathan described was in reality far less severe than he had claimed. The vessel itself showed no signs of damage consistent with a violent storm. Ropes were intact, life jackets remained unused, and the placement of personal items suggested a scene far calmer than the chaos Nathan described.
Authorities also noticed a striking calmness in Nathan's demeanor, both during interviews and in public appearances. While it's normal for people to cope with trauma differently, some experts and acquaintances couldn't help but feel that his composure was unusual for someone who had allegedly lost two close family members in a single afternoon. Friends described moments where Nathan laughed or smiled during casual conversations, a stark contrast to the grief one might expect. This fueled suspicion that perhaps there was more to the story than he was letting on. Adding to the intrigue were Nathan's actions in the days following the disappearance. Reports emerged that he had been in contact with lawyers and insurance agents almost immediately, seemingly focused on financial matters rather than mourning. While some argued that it was natural to protect family assets, others saw it as an early red flag. The sudden attention on inheritance, coupled with the mysterious circumstances of the yacht trip, drew a sharp line of questioning from both law enforcement and the public. Nathan's statements to authorities became a focal point for investigators. Each retelling of the events seemed carefully rehearsed, and certain details changed subtly with time. When asked about the moments leading up to the alleged storm, he provided vague answers, often pointing to the unpredictability of the sea or attributing actions to his mother and grandmother without offering clear explanations. Investigators grew increasingly frustrated by the lack of concrete information and the absence of physical evidence to corroborate his story. The media, too, played a role in amplifying suspicion. News outlets portrayed Nathan as a troubled young man caught in a web of tragedy and controversy. Headlines questioned his role, implying that the disappearance might not have been a simple accident. Online forums buzzed with theories, some more sinister than others. Speculation ranged from accidental neglect to deliberate foul play, with Nathan positioned at the center of each narrative. Each article, each broadcast, each social media post added pressure, intensifying the public's fascination and distrust. Family dynamics further complicated the picture. Nathan's father, Nathan Carman Sr., had a complex history involving legal disputes and financial challenges. The family's wealth and inheritance potential became part of the conversation, raising questions of motive and opportunity. Could financial gain have played a role in the disappearance? Or was it merely coincidence that a young man with significant inheritance at stake was left alone on a yacht while tragedy struck? Investigators could not ignore the possible intersections of money, motive, and opportunity. By the time the initial search ended, Nathan had not only survived a harrowing ordeal at sea, but had also survived the court of public opinion. Suspicion clung to him like a shadow. Investigators were unsure if they were dealing with an unlucky witness or someone hiding the truth. Each new lead, each examination of evidence only seemed to deepen the mystery. Nathan Carman, once a grieving son and grandson, had now become a figure of intrigue, suspicion, and controversy. Even years later, the question remains, was Nathan truly an innocent young man caught in a tragic accident, or did the calm, calculating demeanor he displayed conceal a darker truth? The inconsistencies, the focus on inheritance, and the behavior following the disappearance continue to fuel debate. The case became not only about the lost lives of Linda and Arlene Carman, but also about the enigmatic young man who survived and the lingering question of what he might have known or done on that fateful day. As the investigation into the disappearance of Linda and Arlene Carman unfolded, it quickly became clear that the Carman family's story was far from simple. Behind the calm facade of their New England life lay tensions, secrets, and financial complexities that would come to play a significant role in the case. Nathan Carman, already under suspicion for his behavior and statements, soon found himself caught in a storm not only of public scrutiny, but also of legal and familial battles. At the heart of the controversy was the Carman family's wealth. Nathan's grandmother, Arlene, had accumulated a substantial inheritance over her lifetime, and there were legal documents outlining how it was to be passed down. With her sudden disappearance and the subsequent loss of Linda as well, Nathan became the primary heir. This fact did not escape investigators, nor did it escape the public's attention. Questions arose almost immediately. Could financial gain have motivated something more sinister than mere accident? The timing, the circumstances, and the rapid focus on inheritance created an unavoidable cloud of suspicion around the young man. Family dynamics, long hidden beneath the surface, began to emerge. Friends and extended family members hinted at disputes and disagreements over money, lifestyle choices, and responsibilities within the family. Some described the Carmans as outwardly close-knit, but closer examination revealed fractures that had existed for years. Legal documents, past lawsuits, and records of financial disputes painted a picture of a family where loyalty was sometimes overshadowed by self-interest. Nathan, as the surviving family member, was thrust into the center of these disputes almost overnight. Legal battles soon followed. Lawyers representing various interests in the family estate were immediately engaged, and Nathan's role as heir became a focal point. Court filings, depositions, and hearings created a public record of intrigue and tension. While these proceedings were ostensibly about the proper management and distribution of inheritance, they inevitably fed the media narrative that financial motive could have been involved in the mysterious disappearance. Every headline, every court transcript, every small legal maneuver was dissected by true crime enthusiasts, feeding speculation and distrust.
Nathan's own involvement in these legal matters added further complexity. He was often portrayed as young, inexperienced, and vulnerable, yet at the same time he demonstrated a surprising familiarity with legal procedures and estate matters. Some saw this as evidence of maturity and responsibility in a difficult situation. Others, however, interpreted it as a calculating effort to secure his inheritance, reinforcing doubts about his behavior during and after the disappearance. The dual perception of Nathan, both innocent and potentially manipulative, kept investigators, journalists, and the public guessing at his true character. Complicating matters further were previously unknown family secrets that emerged during the course of legal proceedings. Past disputes, hidden financial arrangements, and private disagreements that had never reached public knowledge came to light, revealing a family dynamic far more complex than outsiders had imagined. The interplay between these secrets and the ongoing investigation created an atmosphere of suspicion, where every revelation seemed to raise more questions than it answered. Investigators had to sift through not only the mystery of the disappearance, but also the tangled web of family history, trying to separate fact from rumor and truth from motive. Through it all, Nathan Carman remained at the center of the storm. While he continued to assert his innocence, the combination of his inheritance, the emerging family secrets, and his behavior in the aftermath of the disappearance created a persistent cloud of doubt. Legal battles became intertwined with media scrutiny, and both converged to create an environment where public perception and legal reality were often at odds. Each courtroom hearing, each lawyer's statement, each public comment was analyzed for hints of guilt, revealing a story of a family under pressure, secrets coming to the surface, and a young man whose life had been forever changed by tragedy. The saga of family secrets and legal battles illustrated a truth that investigators and true crime followers quickly recognized. The disappearance of Linda and Arlene Carman was not just a maritime mystery, but also a window into a complicated family life, where wealth, loyalty, and hidden tensions intersected in ways that made the case far more intricate than anyone had first imagined. In the shadows of these disputes, the question lingered: what role did Nathan really play, and how much did he know about the events that led to the vanishing of his mother and grandmother? As the Carman case progressed, investigators quickly realized that unraveling the truth would be far from simple. The disappearance of Linda and Arlene Carman presented one of the most confounding challenges for authorities in recent memory. While Nathan Carman had survived and told his story, the physical evidence, or lack thereof, posed a significant hurdle. The ocean, vast and unpredictable, had claimed the primary clues, leaving law enforcement and forensic experts with a nearly impossible puzzle. From the very beginning, the scene itself offered few answers. The yacht, though intact, contained subtle irregularities that puzzled investigators. Personal belongings were scattered in ways that didn't fully align with Nathan's account of a sudden storm. Life jackets remained on board undisturbed. Ropes and equipment showed no clear signs of struggle or damage that would be expected if a violent squall had capsized the vessel. Every item on that boat became a potential clue, yet none definitively proved what had occurred or confirmed Nathan's version of events. Investigators turned to forensic experts, hoping that scientific analysis might provide clarity. But here, too, challenges abounded. Saltwater exposure and time had severely limited what evidence could be collected. Biological traces were minimal, and no definitive DNA from Linda or Arlene could be recovered from the yacht. Any fibers, hair, or potential fingerprints were compromised by environmental conditions, leaving forensic teams with frustratingly little to work with. Each test seemed to answer one question while raising several others, contributing to a sense of dead end after dead end in the investigation. Witness accounts, too, were scarce and often contradictory. Boaters and local residents reported seeing the Carman's yacht earlier in the day, but their observations offered little clarity about the disappearance itself. Timing, distance, and perspectives varied widely, creating conflicting narratives that investigators struggled to reconcile. In a case already complicated by missing physical evidence, these human variables added yet another layer of ambiguity. Authorities had to tread carefully, weighing each account against the limited physical evidence, knowing that a single misstep could misdirect the investigation entirely. Adding to the difficulty were Nathan's statements, which investigators meticulously compared against the forensic and circumstantial evidence. Small inconsistencies, differences in the reported timing of the storm, descriptions of the women's movements, and the sequence of events created doubts. Yet none of these discrepancies were conclusive. Without bodies, definitive forensic proof, or clear eyewitness testimony, law enforcement faced the unenviable task of trying to solve a potential crime with only fragments of a story and scattered clues. The investigation also revealed systemic challenges that often accompany cases at sea. Maritime incidents are notoriously difficult to reconstruct. Waves, wind, and tides can erase evidence in moments. A slight change in weather or ocean currents can move or destroy crucial items. Search and rescue operations, though thorough, cannot guarantee recovery in vast, unpredictable waters. In the Carman case, these natural variables meant that investigators were often working in the dark, forced to rely on inference, probability, and painstaking analysis rather than concrete proof. Despite these obstacles, law enforcement persisted. Each new angle, from examining Nathan's personal communications to reviewing maritime records and insurance documents, was pursued with diligence. Experts in oceanography, meteorology, and maritime safety were consulted to try and reconstruct the events of that fateful day. Each layer of analysis brought insights, but also frustrations. The absence of the women themselves, the most crucial pieces of evidence, meant that every conclusion had to be tentative, every theory speculative, and every lead scrutinized with extreme care. In the end, the forensic and investigative challenges of the Carman case highlight the harsh reality of maritime disappearances. Even with modern technology, extensive resources, and expert analysis, some truths remain elusive. The lack of bodies, the minimal physical evidence, and the unpredictability of the ocean combined to create a scenario that would test investigators to their limits. For the authorities, the mystery of what truly happened on that yacht became not just a question of crime, but a battle against nature, circumstance, and the very limitations of forensic science itself. The Carman case, therefore, stands as a stark reminder of how difficult it can be to find answers when evidence is scarce, when human accounts conflict, and when nature itself conspires to keep its secrets. It's a case where every clue counts, yet every clue is fleeting, and where the truth remains tantalizingly just out of reach. Even years after that fateful summer day, the disappearance of Linda and Arlene Carman continues to captivate the public, true crime enthusiasts, and investigators alike. Despite extensive searches, legal battles, and painstaking analysis, the case remains unresolved, a haunting enigma that refuses to fade from memory. The story of the Carman family has become more than a tragedy. It has become a cautionary tale of mystery, suspicion, and the limits of both human understanding and investigative science. The public fascination with the case is understandable. From the outset, the narrative combined elements that make a story irresistible. A young man left alone after a family tragedy, a vast and unforgiving ocean, potential motives tied to inheritance, and an ongoing cloud of suspicion surrounding Nathan. Each new detail, no matter how small, is analyzed and dissected by amateur sleuths and professional investigators alike. Online forums and social media channels remain alive with debate, with enthusiasts tirelessly theorizing about every possible scenario, from accidental misfortune to deliberate foul play. Media coverage has only fueled this fascination. Headlines over the years have cast Nathan in varying lights, sometimes as a grieving son, other times as a suspicious figure whose calm demeanor and financial interest in the family inheritance raised eyebrows. Every interview, court appearance, and public statement became fodder for discussion, generating endless speculation and keeping the story alive in the public consciousness. The case has transcended the boundaries of a simple missing persons investigation, evolving into a modern-day mystery where truth and rumor often intersect. What makes the Carman case even more compelling is its unresolved nature. Without definitive answers, no recovered bodies, no clear evidence of foul play, and conflicting testimonies, the story remains open-ended. This uncertainty invites endless interpretation. Was the disappearance an unfortunate maritime accident, the result of a sudden storm or unforeseen mishap? Or was there something darker at play, hidden behind Nathan's calm demeanor and the tangled web of family disputes? The ambiguity keeps audiences engaged, forcing them to piece together the story themselves, almost like detectives in their own right. Over time, the case has also sparked broader conversations about the nature of investigation, the role of the media, and the complexities of family dynamics. It highlights how quickly tragedy can become entwined with suspicion, and how public perception can influence, for better or worse, the trajectory of a legal and investigative process. Experts in maritime law, forensic science, and psychology have examined the case, offering varying interpretations of Nathan's behavior, the reliability of witness statements, and the likelihood of certain scenarios. Yet none of these analyses have brought definitive conclusions, leaving a lingering sense of unease. For Nathan Carman, the ongoing mystery has become a defining aspect of his life. Public attention, legal disputes, and persistent questions about his role have followed him into adulthood. Every appearance, statement, or social media post is examined through the lens of the case. Meanwhile, the disappearance of his mother and grandmother continues to haunt families and investigators, a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring power of unanswered questions. Ultimately, the Carman case endures because it taps into universal fears and fascinations, the unknown, the uncontrollable power of nature, and the human capacity for both tragedy and deception. The ocean, as it did on that summer day, continues to guard its secrets, leaving the world to wonder what truly happened. Until answers emerge, if they ever do, the story of Nathan Carman and the mysterious disappearance of his mother and grandmother will remain a chilling, compelling, and unforgettable mystery. One that reminds us that sometimes real life can be far stranger and far darker than any fictional tale.